it seems absolutely inconceivable, and I think most astronomers today will go along with me, that in this gigantic universe, we are the only living things and the only intelligent things. It's far more probable that there are more races ahead of us than behind us, and that we may be very low indeed in the hierarchy of cosmic intelligence. Ultimately, one of the most important results of spaceflight is, I think, going to be the contact with superior civilizations.
I am one of the most fortunate people who ever lived. You're looking at someone who believes he has the best job in the world, and it is ideally suited for me. I cannot imagine a better place for Gentryho Leeho to work than the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, trying to build spacecraft to explore the planets robotically. I have maybe 18 to 20 projects under my jurisdiction, ranging from ideas for things we're going to do 10 years from now to spacecraft that have been flying for 15 years and have a problem. And I would like to continue to do that with the productive years that I have left. One of the biggest philosophical questions that human beings have ever faced is the question, are we alone in the universe? Why is it important whether or not there is life on Mars or ever was? If we discover life of any kind anywhere other than on the planet Earth, it will be the greatest scientific discovery in history. This search is among the most profound of anything that human beings have ever done. I was born in New York City, and I was fascinated by baseball. Somewhere between 4 and 5, I became a Brooklyn Dodger fan.
Pitch, Robinson swings and lines it out on the left field for a base hit to score a Reese.
And I enjoyed computing the batting averages for all of my favorite Dodgers every day.
Is that a real Major League ball?
It sure is. That's the best one we have. Here's a real Major League bat just to go with it.
And so, in the middle of the summer, I was out in the street, and a man walked by, and he said, "Excuse me, are you reciting the batting averages of the Brooklyn Dodgers? And I said, yes. He says, well, they're not posted until the afternoon papers. And I said, matter of fact, I was a 5-year-old kid, so I computed them myself. He said, what? He says, how did you do that? And I said, well, you just have to take the number of at-bats and the number of hits, and then you do the division, and you can compute the batting average. Well, he was freaked out. I didn't know it at the time, but he was a professor at Columbia. He went to my parents and said, 5-year-olds don't compute batting averages. Do you mind if I take your son for some tests? When I was in the 5th grade and they gave aptitude tests, my reading level was 11th grade and my math level was freshman in college when I was in the 5th grade. The teachers and the schools had no idea what to do with me. I caused a lot of trouble in my youth. I can look back now and say it was because I was bored, but that's just an excuse. I was a discipline problem. School was painful, home was painful. My only escape were books. Until junior high school, and I go into an 8th grade class with a woman, Bertha Casey. I really loved that lady. And I kept in touch with her until after my first novel was written. I kept in touch with her all the way through college. And I told her that she changed my life because she opened the door to it being okay to be not like everybody else. I remember when Carl was on Johnny Carson and he talked about when he was age 12, he looked up at the skies and he knew exactly what he wanted to do. That wasn't me at all. Do you know what at age 12 I wanted to be? Anything that could possibly be happy, because I wasn't. It was baseball, playing baseball and following baseball, that stabilized me with respect to my peers. Now I got emotional there, I have to blow my nose. I finished my undergraduate work at the University of Texas at Austin. I decided to get a master's degree in physics, mathematics, and aerospace engineering at MIT. Kennedy had made the statement about landing on the moon, and Apollo was underway. It was clear to me from what I was reading that what was about to happen was the same thing with respect to the solar system.
Many years ago, the great British explorer George Mallory, who was to die on Mount Everest, was asked why did he want to climb it. He said because it is there. Well, space is there, and we're going to climb it. And the moon and the planets are there.
My 23-year-old mind already grasped that I could be part of the only generation that would ever explore the solar system for the first time.
You sense the spirit of adventure that stimulates hundreds of scientists, most of them young, all of them bold, as they set forth on the great intellectual exploration of our century, the search for life beyond the Earth.
On these other planets, the physical conditions are different. The organisms that live there will also be different. They will, from our point of view, be strange and exotic and bizarre. We will search them out. To seek the beings of other worlds is a rare adventure. All mankind shares the quest.
once upon a time, maybe 6 million years ago, there started being the development on this planet of a species that all of us would say had some intelligence. And maybe 600,000 years ago, some early species of humanity looked up at the stars and wondered what they were, and perhaps thought they were campfires in the sky. But I believe the moment that human beings understood that the Earth was a planet and that there were other planets, the idea of the sphere of influence of the human species eventually extending beyond the boundaries of the planet Earth began to develop. Evolution has preserved in us a thirst, perhaps it's even stronger than that, a lust to understand through exploration.
Do you anticipate that we're going to have any discovery of intelligent life within the planets in our solar system?
No, I think it's unlikely that, as of now, there's anything even comparable to us in this solar system, in this little group of planets around our sun. And because it takes even light 4 years to get to the nearest star, we've obviously got to travel at an appreciable fraction of the speed of light to make interstellar travel possible. The curious thing is this, that at the very moment when we've acquired the ability to go out to the nearer planets, we have also, as a result of the same technological development, acquired the ability to communicate with anybody on the stars, if there's anybody there to listen to our signals and to send anything back.
This telescope you see here is by far the largest radio telescope in the world. In the near future, when this telescope is improved and others like it built, we may start serious searches for other civilizations in space.
In 1960, an astronomer named Frank Drake wrote down an equation for the likely number of intelligent civilizations in our galaxy today. There's a whole bunch of variables in the equation, but the one that's the most important is a philosophical one. Perhaps there is something about an advanced civilization that limits how long it survives.
We're seeking the answers of those questions every human being asks himself at one time. Why am I here? Why is there a world? We will never understand these things until we have understood the birth and death of the stars, where life comes from, what forms it can take, what is its eventual destiny.
The universe, we now know, was created in a Big Bang 13.81 billion years ago. In our galaxy alone, there are 150 billion stars. it can be well assumed that there may be close to 1 trillion planets. That number staggers people. If the average lifetime of an advanced extraterrestrial civilization is short, then it would explain why we have not been contacted in any way. That was the question Enrico Fermi asked, the famous Fermi paradox. Enrico Fermi was a very famous physicist, and he once asked the following question: if there are so many stars and so many planets, and a likelihood that life is going to emerge, surely whatever it was that created us has happened over and over and over again. Where are they? Imagine that you're sitting in a very large auditorium, and down on the floor there are 1 million light bulbs. And we're going to start winding the clock beginning when the universe was created. And we're going to run it forward. And whenever an extraterrestrial civilization that is advanced emerges, a light bulb will come on. But then it dies. The light dies in a very short period of time compared to this long 13.81 billion years. Lights would come on over here, then a light would come on over there. But there would never be two lights close enough to each other that endured long enough that they would be able to interact. But imagine if just one civilization figured out how to survive for a long period of time. Let's just say as long as the dinosaurs, which was about 100 million years. In that case, you would imagine another light eventually coming on close to that light. And perhaps after a certain period of time, there would be a group of lights in the same region, all of which were able to survive. And I don't think it's going to happen, but oh my goodness, I would jump with jubilation and I would weep with joy if there was an unambiguous signal received from a clearly advanced extraterrestrial species.
Is life everywhere? Does it have to be the same as us? Or are we just one example of a vast array of possible kinds of biochemistries? Well, there's no way for us ever to answer that question, no way for us to determine the generality of life on Earth, except by looking for life elsewhere. And the nearest candidate planet is surely Mars.
When it was decided in the late 60s that we were going to send a spacecraft to Mars and try to land on the planet, the man walked into my office and said, "Gentry, somebody told me that you knew something about interplanetary navigation. Could you help us with this proposal?" 25 years old, I got to write part of a proposal that would land the first spacecraft ever on another planet. For the next 7 years of my life, I lived and breathed that mission. Somewhere near 2,000 people at one time or another worked on some major thing associated with Viking. One of those people, of course, was Carl Sagan, and he and I developed a friendship.
This is one of hundreds of little channels. Channels which look for all the world as if they've been cut by running water.
150 years ago, an Italian named Giovanni Schiaparelli looked at Mars and he announced that he saw canale on Mars. Now, canale is an Italian word that means channels. But when the word came to the United States and was translated, the New York Times and the Washington Post both said, an Italian astronomer has found canals on Mars. And of course, immediately people started thinking that, wow, there must be advanced life on Mars if they're building canals.
We take you now to Grover's Mill, New Jersey.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have a grave announcement to make. Those strange beings who landed in the Jersey farmlands tonight are the vanguard of an invading army from the planet Mars.
Ladies and gentlemen, due to circumstances beyond our control, we are unable to continue the broadcast from Grover's Mill.
Many people developed fear of possible life on Mars, and that can all be ascribed to a magnificent science fiction work by H.G. Wells called The War of the Worlds.
They're turning into flames. Now the whole field's caught by the woods of Mars. The gas tanks for the automobiles spreading everywhere.
That basic idea that aliens might be hostile has permeated many science fiction films where the Earth was invaded by Martians and they summarily began to wipe us out. In 1964, a spacecraft called Mariner flew by Mars with a primitive camera and took photographs. People believed at that time that there was not only life on Mars, but intelligent life on Mars. But what they saw looked almost exactly like the moon.
Well, I'll be damned.
And all of a sudden, that probability plummeted.
9, 8, 7, 6.
On the Mariner 9 spacecraft in 1971, the first pictures that came back astonished the world. Why? Because there was clearly water in the atmosphere of Mars and water in the ice caps at the North Pole. The presence of water stimulated the idea that perhaps life evolved there.
In the Mariner 9 mission, we were able to look at Mars for the first time close enough. If there were a civilization on Mars like ours, we would have detected it. It isn't there.
Right.
But that doesn't exclude plants and animals and even big animals on Mars. There's no evidence for them.
Right.
But there's nothing to exclude them. And that's the great thing about the Viking mission to Mars, which goes to Mars in 1976, is for the first time we'll be able to find out. We'll have cameras, look around and see if anybody interesting walks by.
In 1974, when we were planning to do this, nobody had ever demonstrated they could land on a planet with an atmosphere. We had no idea what the terrain was like at all. All we could see from the Mariner pictures were pieces roughly the size of LA. Everyone told us that what we should do if we were going to try to land on Mars was just build a little sphere that would survive with a window and a camera. We said, nope, we are going to go to Mars and we are going to try to figure out whether or not there is life there. And so the Viking mission to Mars, which included 2 landers and 2 orbiters, was designed to try to determine whether or not there was life on Mars. But we did not have any idea how to look for any kind of life except that kind of life that exists on Earth. And that was what drove the design of our instrumentation. We were Earth chauvinists. I saw the Viking launches. Viking was my first launch. In 1975, we launched 2 Viking spacecraft. We were all so worried about the possibility of a failure. So there were 2 for the very first launch and landing on the planet Mars. In my mind, I was inside the spacecraft going through step by step what the sequence was. Flying to Mars was going to take 9 months. We managed to go into orbit and look at the surface of Mars with these fantastic new cameras that we had, which were 20 times better than the ones that had flown on the Mariner 9 spacecraft in 1971, to determine the right place to land. I was responsible for something called landing site certification. Our pre-selected site turned out to be filled with gigantic boulders and is a mess. Nobody knew the answer. The best way to solve a problem that nobody's ever solved before is to get 6 of the smartest people you can possibly find in a room, and you say, what should we do now? And every one of them is energized to put his or her best ideas forward. And if someone in the room says, this is what I think should be done, somebody else might say, that's ridiculous, it won't work, and we didn't pull any punches.
And you're left. Are you going to commit to a place where in order to land there, you have to fly over, okay, Jerry, a valley?
No, let me get rid of the emotion.
Okay.
This culture of intellectual confrontation, and we would go on and on, you know. At that time, telling somebody else you didn't think their idea was good didn't cause any problems.
All we know is there's an area right here. Forget the whole emotional argument about canyons and...
I remember working 17 hours a day. I had a cot in my office, and I wasn't the only one. We would look at a site every 2 or 3 days. 17 days later, everybody was completely exhausted. And I'll never forget a meeting. It was 2 o'clock in the morning, and we had found a site that looked better than any of the other sites, but still not perfect. And Carl Sagan and Hal Mazursky and Jim Martin and Tom Young and I were 2 a.m. in the morning looking at the pictures that had come down and spread them out. And Hal Mazursky plopped his head down on the table and said, I can't do this anymore. Let's go here. And that was it. From then on, It was a piece of artificial intelligence.
59,000 feet coming up on motor fire pretty soon.
You hit the top of the Martian atmosphere going 12 to 13,000 miles an hour.
Got it. We have motor fire.
It had to burn off a heat shield to remove the kinetic energy, then pop a parachute, then fire thrusters, and land softly on the surface.
177 feet per second. Confirm roll maneuver. Lead CCS. Parachute separation. Roger. Minus 105.3 Gs. 2,600 feet, 188 feet per second. 2,600 feet.
Has become known as the 7 minutes of terror.
366 feet, 73 feet per second. ACS is close to vertical. Nav is green for touchdown. ACS is green, 1.5 degrees per second max, 0.2 Gs. 8 feet per second.
Touchdown, we have touchdown.
12 hours, 12 minutes.
We're standing there, looking at a screen of the first photograph ever to be taken from the surface of another planet.
Mars from the surface. Man's age-old dream of a close-up look at what it's like on another planet and of searching for life there today became a reality.
This is the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, where scientists are jubilant over the successful landing of the Viking 1 spaceship on the planet Mars this morning. They are starting to get a picture from Mars, 212 million miles away, and we are seeing now the first close-up view of the red planet.
My very best wishes for a great job. We're all very proud of you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Bye. Thank you.
Joy. It's indescribable. There was party after party after the Viking landings, and such science fiction luminaries as Robert Heinlein, Gene Roddenberry, Ray Bradbury, Michelle Nichols. These people understood that there is a connection between science fiction and engineering.
From this moment on, life is on Mars, an extension of our sensibilities, of our eyeballs, of our sense of touch, of our scientific intuition. That, to me, is the important thing about the last few minutes, that man has reached out across space and is really touching this planet, and so our life is on Mars as of this hour.
One of the most important attributes associated with the human species is the ability to be amazed, to feel inside yourself an incredible rush. Look at that.
What about the ages-old question of life on the planet Mars? From the photograph that we are now viewing, is there any indication of it?
Now the boom will azimuth over and move out of the way. We will take the final picture. This is being done at 2:30 our time here on Mars. The first information will be down between 5:30 and 6:30 tonight. We should have the data analyzed by around 8 o'clock.
We thought we were building a suite of instruments that would go there and would unambiguously answer the question, is there life on Mars? We did not prepare for ambiguity.
Latest data from the Viking 2 lander vehicle still shows no signs of life on Mars, but the scientists haven't given up hope.
Today, the sense that Viking found no life on Mars is very much in question. Gil Levin, who was the principal investigator, or the lead scientist if you prefer, has contended for the rest of his life, he died last year at the age of 97, that what his instrument saw could only be interpreted as a sign of life.
We have two competing ideas, one of which suggests that we found biology, and the other one of which suggests that everything we have seen is chemistry. I think it's fair to say that
when it was all over, we discovered that the American press in 1976 did not fully understand the significance of landing on Mars.
If you find any organisms, will they be brought back to the Earth? No, all the equipment we send to Mars will stay at Mars. So then there won't be any little green monsters attacking our cities. No, all the tests we make will be...
It was apparent both in what was written in the newspapers and also from the questions that they asked us at the press conference.
I would like to start explaining now. Is that all right? Okay. First of all, we had a...
They struggle to even comprehend what it is we're trying to do, much less why it's important.
The study of climatic change on Mars should illuminate our understanding of climatic change on Earth.
Let me now show what we found with the mass spectrometer on the lander.
Most scientists and engineers cannot easily explain, and don't even want to, the emotions associated with what they have done.
Mike, you want to add to that?
And they're much more comfortable working inside the technology that they understand.
Because the escape process lets us, I believe, extrapolate backwards and say...
Which is incomprehensible to the person on the street.
I'm still confused. Where exactly do we stand on whether there could be life in this region?
There is nothing in this analysis that says there is life on Mars.
After a couple of weeks, the interest in the media was starting to wane a little bit. And then one morning, my executive assistant came into my office and said, "Gentry, ABC's on line 1, NBC's on line 2, CBS is on line 3, and the National Enquirer's on line 4. I said, "What for?" "Because of the writing on the rocks on Mars."
Those remarkably vivid pictures that we've been receiving from Mars created a flurry of excitement across the country last night when one of them seemed to form the letters B and G on rocks. Is there any meaning at all to this?
This picture with the letter B apparently written on a rock produced a brief flurry of excitement.
For a while, it looked like there was graffiti left by someone or something on Mars.
So I went to the press conference. There were 100 people there, including all the reporters from the local Los Angeles television stations. So we went through. My name is Bert Gentry Lee, and my initials are BGL. And what someone thought they saw on the rocks on Mars was a B and a G. And so everybody thought it was my initials on a rock on Mars. So I said, it is conceivable that at some time in the dim, dark, distant past, there was life on Mars, and there may even be life today. And it is remotely possible, with a very, very low probability, that intelligence might have emerged, and that intelligence might desire to communicate with intelligence somewhere else. But there is no number small enough to define the probability that any intelligent life that ever lived on Mars would choose to communicate with the rest of the universe using Latin letters. Why were more people not astonished by Apollo and Viking? Why did the scale of those accomplishments not reverberate throughout the entire country, or maybe the entire species, as gigantic events. This bothered me a great deal, and it also bothered Carl Sagan.
But we have to understand what we're talking about when we say...
So Carl said to me, somebody ought to do something about it. And I said, that somebody could be us. And he said, how do we do that? We make a television series. He said, we don't know a thing about making a television series. And I looked at him straight in the eye. I said, 10 years ago, I didn't know anything about landing on Mars. And that was the beginning of Cosmos. Carl, at that point, was the preeminent expositor of everything in space. He had just begun his regular times on Johnny Carson.
Would you welcome Dr. Carl Sagan?
So he was known. Carl was a magnificent science writer. When Carl would write pieces, oh my gosh, I would get tears in my eyes. They were beautiful.
We're made of star stuff. We are a way for the cosmos to know itself.
Cosmos takes you on an epic journey through space and time.
Cosmos was successful beyond our wildest belief. We were bringing the sense of excitement and wonder that makes people of a scientific bent believe that what they're doing is so important, magical almost.
Yeah, we're on the verge of being. We should be over on here, and then this is.
One of the most wonderful attributes about some of the really clever and innovative engineers that I have known in my life is that they become genuinely excited when confronted by a problem that appears to be impossible to solve. In 1964, a professor of astronomy visiting Jet Propulsion Laboratory, a man named Gary Flandreau, discovered that the planets in our solar system would be aligned in such a way for a short period of time that a spacecraft leaving the Earth could fly by Jupiter, get a gravity assist from Jupiter, fly by Saturn, get a gravity assist from Saturn, and go on to Uranus and Neptune. 4 bodies that all we knew about were little tiny pictures on cameras that had been taken from telescopes on the planet Earth. And I remember at the time, as a young man, remember I started my background in celestial mechanics and navigation, I was thrilled with the idea. Could we possibly build a spacecraft that could do that? My role on Voyager was to be a member of the review board to determine whether or not what the project is doing makes sense.
3, 2, 1. We have ignition, and we have liftoff. We have liftoff of the Titan Centaur carrying the first of 2 Voyager spacecraft to extend man's senses farther into the solar system than ever before.
As the first Voyager spacecraft sped toward Jupiter, the 4 large moons were still just blips we knew virtually nothing about them. And little by little, these moons began to bloom. And I will never forget, this young woman in her 20s was part of the navigation team and was looking at the photographs as they came in for the first time, and she saw this flare on the moon Io. Linda Morabito discovered that Io was indeed exploding with volcanoes all over its surface. The next one was Europa, a moon of Jupiter, which we are almost certain contains a vast liquid water ocean underneath its ice shell. So much water, maybe 10 to 100 times as much water as there is on the planet Earth. And life could have formed. Such a thing had never even been imagined. There is a moon of Saturn called Enceladus. Material is spewing out of what appears to be a liquid water ocean underneath the ice that covers Enceladus. 30 years later, Cassini would discover that Enceladus had valleys cut into the surface, out of which geysers are pouring. And then Titan, the largest moon in the solar system, another moon of Saturn, it's larger than our moon, has an atmosphere. And that atmosphere is mostly nitrogen and is rich in organic material. I mean, there are all the amino acids that make up our DNA. You can find them in the atmosphere of Titan. And so Voyager went on. New world after new world. These are real places. They don't look like anything we've ever seen before. What does that say about the place where we live? From the very beginning, it was understood that the Grand Tour would eventually accelerate the two Voyager spacecraft so that they would leave the solar system altogether. This piqued the interests of many of the broadest minds on the planet. And of course, Carl Sagan was fascinated by this. So Carl went to work with a team of people, including Frank Drake, to design something called the Voyager record, with the imaginative idea that suppose some intelligent extraterrestrial somewhere out in space, somewhere hundreds of thousands of years from now perhaps, would grab the Voyager spacecraft and would see this record. It is a record, and there's information on the side of it that tells you how to play it.
Hello from the children of planet Earth.
As the Secretary General of the United Nations, I send greetings on behalf of the people of our planet.
Shalom. Hola y saludos a todos.
各位好嗎？祝各位平安、健康、快樂。
Assalamu alaikum.
Muli bwanji mu bantu onse bakumwamba.
Eirenikos pros philos eleluthamen philoi.
The exercise of defining what sounds of Earth to put on that record was a fascinating Rorschach test of the human species. What is on that record is a digest of some of the broadest and best sounds that human beings have ever produced in music. There is an absolutely widespread set of music from all the different cultures on the planet. So it is possible that there are extraterrestrials out there somewhere, and it is possible that they will understand how to play that record. And if they have any limbs, they will move in rhythm when they listen to Chuck Berry singing Johnny Be Good.
Command mod is on. Looks good. We have a good mind.
I get asked often, would you like to go into space? And my answer is, I already have. Many times. The part of me that is uniquely human was there. The best part of me, not my body, but my mind. If what we are trying to do in exploring space is to add to the knowledge of the human species, a much more effective way to do it is to do it with robots instead of people. Why? It's very simple. We have to make sure the humans stay alive, which means that wherever we send them, we have to bring them back. Now, someone might say, Gentryho Leeho, I thought you were imaginative, and it's clear that you have a failure of the imagination. No good scientist, engineer, or futurist ever makes a categorical statement that something is impossible. However, our technology today does not allow us to mount an instrumented expedition to a planet around another star with a flight time less than, listen carefully, 10,000 years. first started thinking about the exploration of space, I said, well, what's the end point of all this? Are we going to meet some aliens? So I did a lot of work, research, study, reading, and so forth. I first realized that all alien discussions fall into these three categories that are well known within that genre, which is there's close encounters of the first kind, which is, wow, did you see that?
This is a UFO, unidentified flying object, popularly called a flying saucer.
When I was very young, I was fascinated by this entire subject.
We are being observed by some type of device which is ahead of us, far ahead of us, and is probably controlled by a highly advanced superior civilization.
I saw two red lights, and I saw what looked to be shaped like a pie.
I saw a flying object that was not manufactured, in my opinion, on this earth. That was metallic, and it was an aircraft.
I was not that interested in either Close Encounters of the First Kind or the second, but the ones that were Close Encounters of the Third Kind, those definitely piqued my imagination. And of course, at that time, the Betty and Barney Hill story about being abducted was big news and everybody was talking about it.
What language did you speak to them?
I spoke in English, and I don't know what language they spoke in, but I understood them in English.
Well, how tall were these men? I estimate about 4.5 to 5 feet.
I'm 5 feet.
5 feet, yes.
I have talked face to face to people who say they have been abducted by aliens. There were a couple of brothers from Louisiana who said that they regularly had contact with aliens.
They just carried me right up to the craft, and we just seemed to glide right through the door.
Well, they took him in first, and I was right behind. You know, when I got to the door, when I passed out, that's how scared I was.
I didn't see any neck. It looked like it just sit down on a body, if you call it a body. And they had arms, and they didn't have hands as we have. They had more or less like pinchers or claws or something like that.
It does not matter whether or not they have any physical proof, because to them, the experience is real.
There is nothing in Air Force files, in either the classified files or the unclassified files, that come to a conclusion that spaceships have visited the Earth.
Do I believe that there are unidentified flying objects? Absolutely. Do I believe that they are being piloted by aliens from another world? Well, not exactly. If you cannot explain what you have found, invoke the least unlikely hypothesis to explain it. It's called Occam's razor.
That's not LNS though, is it? It's not LNS.
It is a giant step from those photographs, videos, whatever you want to call them, to there are aliens that are here.
Do you believe our government has made contact with intelligent extraterrestrials?
You said that the government has alien bodies or alien species. Have you seen the spacecraft?
The American people largely believe that the government has actively covered up the truth about UAPs.
This general lack of scientific literacy hurts us in a very significant way as a society.
The image was of something that I am not able to attach to any human capability.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
The probability that any alien creature would look anything at all like us is so close to zero, you can't possibly calculate it.
Go back to your station.
Even with some of the very best science fiction movies, and I think Arrival is one of them, representing extraterrestrials as being dramatically different from us. Whenever we talk about communication with an extraterrestrial intelligence, we have to ask ourselves, what common ground would we have with them? On the planet Earth, we have recognized how difficult it is to communicate with even an obviously intelligent species when the whole framework of their existence is foreign to us. Octopuses are the most interesting because their connection to us is 600 million years of evolution away. That means that the intelligence that has developed in octopuses is altogether different than anything we can imagine. Now, I am asked often, do you believe that intelligence exists beyond the planet Earth? And I always say, yes, I do believe that. There could be right now alien machines all over the Earth. They could be hidden inside atoms, inside protons or electrons. What? How would that happen? My colleague Arthur C. Clarke once made the following statement: the technology of an extraterrestrial civilization will be indistinguishable from magic.
The idea of contact with extraterrestrial beings is something that's always fascinated me and has been a main theme of my stories. I'm sure it will happen one day. I think it's possible it may have happened in the remote past. If we are exploring space now, then obviously superior intelligences must have been doing this for millions of years.
I was an Arthur C. Clarke fan from very early in my life. When I read Childhood's End, which is a truly amazing book about alien contact, I said, this man's mind is absolutely fantastic. Arthur C. Clarke is widely regarded as one of the most complete and imaginative minds that existed in the second part of the 20th century.
I wish I could sign with both hands.
He rose to fame early on two different fronts: a science fiction front, and at virtually the same time in his life, he wrote a paper for the British Interplanetary Society in 1948 that would lead to the ability to have satellite communications.
You've been honored for your pioneer work in suggesting the communication satellite, which was purely your idea.
In the very near future, communication satellites are going to multiply the channels of communication to the man in the street.
Nobody had ever conceived of that before. So here is a British person who had a tremendous scientific mind and a tremendous imagination.
Our next speaker really needs no introduction at all, Arthur C. Clarke.
Arthur's name became much wider spread throughout the media and popular vernacular.
Mr. Arthur C. Clarke.
Because of 2001. Directed by Stanley Kubrick, produced in 1968, all of a sudden Arthur became famous.
The success of 2001 was a great surprise to me, and I suspect to Stanley Kubrick. Of course, we hoped it would be successful, but we never imagined it would become a cult movie and have such tremendous sustaining power.
I know of no person who went to that movie that didn't come out absolutely flabbergasted.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
So as I was growing up, he was revered.
Is it correct to refer to you as a scientist? Because really you decided to be a writer, didn't you, even though you're qualified in science?
I have a science degree. It's more accurate to call me a science writer.
Arthur came to the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, this was around 1980, I made certain that I was going to be his guide. I just went crazy talking about Space Odyssey and about his discovery of communication satellites and about childhood's end and all that sort of stuff. And he was gracious and he smiled, and that was that. So years went by, and he and I developed a partnership. Arthur lived in the capital city of Sri Lanka, which is called Colombo, in this wonderful house.
Come on.
I will never forget. Arthur and I went to dinner, and Arthur said to me, I like the way you think. Have you ever thought about doing any writing? And I said, yes, sir. I have thought about writing all my life. And he said, have you ever thought about writing any science fiction? Oh boy. The science fiction grandmaster of the world is asking me, an engineer, if I've ever thought about writing any science fiction? I said, yes, sir. He says, I don't want to promise you anything, but I would like to offer you a chance to write a novel with me. The book is going to be by Arthur C. Clarke and Gentryho Leeho, but you're going to write it. I'm going to edit it. So the Rama books are very simple. Sometime in the future, a gigantic cylindrical spaceship suddenly appears in our solar system, obviously having come from another star. The greatest value of science fiction is the way it opens your mind to possibilities.
Captain's log, stardate 1513.4.
When Arthur C. Clarke and I were talking about writing together, we spent a lot of time talking about Star Trek before we concluded that to us, the difference between fantasy and real science fiction is that in fantasy, it doesn't have to be plausible. It doesn't have to obey the laws of physics.
Message, Captain. Starship Base on Karen 4 requesting explanation of our delay here, sir.
For Arthur and for me, science fiction writing to be good must be not implausible. It doesn't have to be plausible. It has to be not implausible.
One of the important roles of science fiction is to develop flexibility and to make people realize that these possibilities exist and to construct in their own minds sort of scenarios. Say, well, wouldn't it be nice if we can do so-and-so? And then, well, can we? What are the problems? What should we do to aim towards this particular future, which seems an attractive one? Technology is what's made us human. From the ape man who picked up the first bone, as we tried to show in 2001, everything that distinguishes us from the animals is our technology. Spirituality will always remain because the universe will always be full of mystery. There will always be things we don't know. And one of the most important reasons for going into space is to encounter other races that have perhaps been thinking about this sort of thing for not a few thousand years as we have, but for millions of years.
We know today there are close to 1 trillion planets. From the beginning, we have postulated those planets existed. Now we know they are there. This discovery has kicked off many, many other missions to try to understand if out there somewhere there might be another place like the Earth, in orbit in a region around a stable star where water can be liquid, where life could have evolved. We can't say today what technological advances will occur that will someday allow a human imprint, not physical necessarily, but at least mental or spiritual, on another star system. However, our desires for exploration must always be balanced by the need to make certain that what is happening in the already explored world is not unstable. If our future world will be unstable, there will be no exploration of interstellar space.
What kind of damage are we?
Damage? Total, sir. It's what we call a global killer. The end of mankind. Doesn't matter.
There are many themes in science fiction.
My God. What do we do?
In which the Earth becomes essentially unlivable.
High on a mountaintop, an army of scientists work desperately to build this giant rocket to carry a few picked survivors of our doomed civilization to a new life on another world.
And there is a yearning to go somewhere else, to start anew. The idea that we can escape the problems we create on this planet without understanding how we created them and go to someplace else and not make the same mistakes, in my opinion, is a logical fallacy.
Mr. Musk, kind of talk us through your thought process.
I've actually had this conversation with Elon Musk. The idea of human beings living on Mars, it's easy to imagine, but I would not put that as high in my goal of things for the human species to think about as I put doing something about climate change.
Every planet with an atmosphere has some degree of a greenhouse effect. The most spectacular case by far is the greenhouse effect of Venus. The surface temperature is about 470 degrees centigrade, 900 Fahrenheit.
Studying the climate on Venus and Mars makes it very clear that climate is not a stable thing. Did Venus go from being Earth-like at one time to a runaway greenhouse effect because of climate change? That's a terrifying idea. At the beginning of the evolution of the solar system, Mars had liquid water, it was wet and warm, at a time when the Earth was inhospitable to life. Our scientific investigations on the planet Earth have allowed us to construct a fairly accurate historical representation of the atmosphere of the Earth all the way back to 2 or 3 billion years ago. There was a time when the entire surface of the Earth was covered with snow. There have been times in our history when there was not a smidgen of ice or snow anywhere on the planet. We now have predictions on what the climate on the planet Earth will be like in the future as a function of what we do. We are here today after an incredible and fantastic multiple billion years of evolution, during which time there have been 5 different events that have wiped out almost all the species on the planet. If that particular set of events did not happen, the Earth would still be populated by dinosaurs. And what motivation would the dinosaurs ever have to develop radio, to understand the electromagnetic spectrum? Possibly none. What we have concluded is that the emergence of life might not be that difficult, but the emergence of intelligence will not happen unless the life is threatened in some way and there becomes a premium on developing those skills that are necessary to survive. One of the byproducts of my lifelong engagement in the exploration of space has been a deep realization of how wonderful this Earth is and what marvels there are here that we can enjoy and derive pleasure from. I am a passionate environmentalist. If I have free time, I'm out in nature. I go to Park City every year as soon as I am 15 minutes into the hike. I am alone with the trees, with the occasional moose who goes across the path. And this last trip, I broke into tears because all I could think about is, how is it possible that something so natural, with which we didn't have anything to do with, can be so beautiful? When you start to think that perhaps we are a singularity, a rarity, it makes you suddenly become aware of things that you never thought about before, like making certain that we survive, making sure that we understand what are the characteristics that we have that will lift us up and those that will cause us to wipe ourselves out. This struggle between what I consider to be the good in human beings and the bad in human beings was a subject that Arthur C. Clarke and I discussed at great detail.
Your choice is simple. Join us and live in peace, or pursue your present course and face obliteration. We shall be waiting for your answer. The decision rests with you.
Before the first planetary explorations took place, I never thought that each one of these worlds we would explore would be so vastly different than the planet Earth. And what happened as I matured in my life and I realized how different and inhospitable all these places were, I came to say, oh my gosh, we live in paradise and we don't even know it.
Didn't know what time it was, the lights were low, oh, oh. I leaned back on my radio, oh, oh. Some cat was laying down some rock and roll, that is all he said. Then the loud sound, it seemed to fade, came back like a slow voice on a wave of fade. That wasn't no DJ, that was hazy cosmic time. There's a star